Welcome to BookBuzz Reviews and Summaries. What if I told you that your rage, your frustration, your irritation is not a deficiency to conceal, but a gift that you've learned to be afraid of for decades? We've been taught to see anger as perilous, destructive, and shameful. We've been instructed to calm down, to just let it go, to maintain the peace at the expense of our truth. And so we silence our fire. We repress our voice. We anesthetize the very emotion that might just set us free. But what if your anger isn't your enemy? What if it's your internal messenger, strong, specific, and full of intention? In The Gift of Anger, Marcia Cannon bursts the myth we've been given about this reviled emotion and uncovers something profound. Anger won't destroy you. It will wake you up. It's not the indication of your weakness, but the mark of your strength. Anger is your soul's alarm system, ringing to let you know something important is being ignored, abused, or silenced. Imagine no longer fleeing from your anger, but staying with it, listening to it, allowing it to lead you, not down a path of destruction, but into greater truth, unbreakable boundaries, and real peace. This isn't a book about how to manage anger. This is a revolution in how you see it. With 7 deep steps, Cannon will guide you from the surface symptoms of your anger to its sacred source. You'll learn to crack the code that anger provides, to find out what it intensely guards, and to convert your reactivity into conscious choice and clarity. You'll understand how embracing your anger, deeply, truly, can reconnect you to your worth, your voice, and your power. So, then, the question is not how do I stop being angry? The question is, what is my anger trying to tell me? And am I finally ready to listen? Because hidden within your anger is a truth too precious to ignore, and once you open your arms to it, you don't just get in control, you get peace, you get strength, you get yourself. Welcome to The Gift of Anger, where your fire becomes your freedom. Part 1. The Call of Anger, Awakening to a Powerful Ally. Chapter 1. The Whisper Beneath the Roar. We're all usually taught to flee from anger, to hide it, or to blow our top with it. Seldom are we instructed to listen to it. But what if anger is not the enemy? What if, rather, it's a sacred messenger summoning us back to ourselves? In the first chapters of The Gift of Anger, Marcia Cannon encourages us to fundamentally change our view of anger, from a negative force to a directional beacon. She believes anger is more than an inconvenient emotion. It's a call for transformation, a message from your inner self that something is important and needs to be heard. Instead of suppressing or lashing out in anger, Cannon invites us to understand it. Anger, when engaged mindfully, can uncover truth, rebalance boundaries, and remind us of our essential values. It isn't something to be ashamed of, it's something to be curious about. In this, the audience learns about how anger is not a tantrum, it's a voice. And all voices inside want to be listened to and not punished. Chapter 2. Unmasking the Misunderstanding of Anger. Why do we get so confused about anger? Cannon traces this all the way back to childhood conditioning. We're told good people don't get angry. We're shamed for feeling it. We learn to bury it under layers of guilt, fear, or silence. This miseducation creates unprocessed rage, toxic shame, and disconnected relationships with others and with ourselves. But Cannon clarifies that anger is ethically neutral. It is neither good nor bad. It just exists, just as grief or joy. Anger is a human emotion. Holding it back doesn't make you peaceful, it makes you numb and ultimately resentful. She dares us to ask, what if anger isn't a failure of ethics, but a communication from my soul? And that question becomes the platform of change. Chapter 3. The 7 Steps Revealed. Cannon then presents her 7-step process, the model that animates the book. These steps are not controlling anger but alchemizing it, transmuting pain into power, confusion into clarity. The 7 steps are: 1. Feel your anger. 2. Label the trigger. 3. Find the root emotion. 4. Listen for the message. 5. Learn from the anger. 6. Love yourself through it. 7. Live your truth. Each step is crafted to strip away layers of reaction and guide us toward greater awareness and peace. In Part 1, we start with Step 1, learning to really feel our anger without judgment, avoidance, or repression. Chapter 4, Step 1. Feel your anger. This chapter is the heart of Part 1. Canon explains that the vast majority of us fear feeling angry in the body. Heavy chest, tight jaw, hectic thoughts. So instead, we think about it, downplay it, or erupt with it. But to feel anger and to act on anger are different things. Canon instructs effective mindfulness-based skills to sit with rage as a physical sensation, to label it, breathe it, and keep it in awareness. Instead of suppressing or exploding, she encourages us to become curious. Your anger is not a bomb to defuse, it is a doorway to step through. Listeners are walked through a soft but strong exercise. The anger check-in. This is where they tune in to where anger resides in the body, see its shape, size, and energy without having to fix it, the intention, to recover the right to feel without apology, to start trusting yourself again. Chapter 5. Resistance and Revelation. The journey to feel anger is not easy. Canon compassionately addresses the resistance that arises, shame, fear, old voices that say, "You're overreacting," or "You're just being emotional." She explains that this resistance is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're touching something real. She presents compelling case studies and client histories of people who, for the first time, had permitted themselves to feel anger and found tears under the rage, lost dreams under the fury, truth under the tension. To feel anger, Canon instructs, is to begin living emotionally whole. Chapter 6. The Power of Witnessing. One of the deepest truths in Part 1 is this: anger heals when it is witnessed, not judged. Canon illustrates how self-witnessing, being with yourself in your anger without attempting to change it, establishes a sacred space for healing. She even outlines how witnessing someone else's anger, without judgment or defensiveness, has the ability to transform relationships and end cycles of silence. This is the key to the rest of the trip. If we can learn to sense our anger, we can start to see it. And in seeing it, we are no longer a slave to it. Part 2. Beneath the Blaze, Finding Out What Your Anger is Guarding. Chapter 7. Step 2. Identify the trigger. The journey continues. Now that we've felt our anger and allowed its space to be heard, it's time to identify what set it off. In Step 2, Canon teaches us how to label the trigger, the external situation that lit the internal fire. It may have been a biting remark, a failed vow, an eye roll of disapproval, or silence that constituted abandonment. But here's the kicker. Canon explains, the trigger isn't ever simply about the moment. It's an opening to something older, deeper, more intimate. To name the trigger is to shine the flashlight inward, not to fault, but to become conscious. She provides us with hands-on tools such as the trigger tracker, in which you write down when anger shows up, what occurred immediately before, how you felt in your body, and what story you started telling yourself. By repeating, patterns reveal a map of emotional wounds. The trigger is the smoke. The fire is always somewhere deeper, and now we're prepared to excavate that fire. Chapter 8. Step 3. Find the root emotion. Now that we've identified the trigger, the next question is to say, what's really behind this? This is where the work really gets deep. Anger is usually the cover emotion, the protector that moves in when exposure is too dangerous. Underneath anger, Canon shows, are root feelings such as hurt, fear, betrayal, sadness, disappointment, or helplessness. But because we never learned how to safely feel these vulnerable feelings, we allow anger to do their talking for them. Anger puts on the armor, but underneath is the wound. She guides us in uncovering these buried feelings with remarkable compassion. Using reflective exercises, body awareness techniques, and journaling prompts, she helps us drop below the heat and name what we're really feeling. For example, anger at your partner might mask a fear of being unloved. Anger at a colleague might cover a sense of inadequacy or being overlooked. Anger at a friend could be protecting deep sorrow at loss of trust. This step is not easy. 2. Sit with the raw truth without numbing, blaming, or fixing, but it's also where healing starts. Chapter 9. The Courage to Go Deeper. Canon doesn't mince words on this portion of the journey. She admits the emotional minefields that tend to show up as we move toward the truth. There can be memories from childhood, times when our needs were dismissed, boundaries disrespected, voices suppressed. She describes how anger is usually a repeat of that original pain, bursting forth now not because we're crazy, but because we're ready at last to experience what we weren't allowed to before. In this way, she illustrates that labeling. The underlying emotion is an act of freedom. One client, having spent decades angry at her father, finally understood that her real emotion was abandonment, and in that acknowledgement, the anger mellowed, not gone, but changed. You cannot heal what you won't allow yourself to feel. Canon terms this work emotional archaeology. We are excavating from our past not to linger, but to reclaim. Chapter 10. The message and the emotion. This chapter serves as a transition between steps 3 and 4, providing a key revelation. Every emotion, particularly the ones we tend to avoid, contains a message. Anger's role is to scream until we hear, but once we hear, once we discover the underlying feeling, we begin to hear the true message. You are worthy of respect. You are wounded, and that counts. You deserve to be loved. Anger shifts from a dictator to a teacher. Canon brings in the concept of inner reparenting at this point. How to be present for yourself in ways you were perhaps not shown by others. If you're angry because you feel silenced, perhaps it's time to become your own best listener. If you're angry from betrayal, perhaps it's time to respect your own boundaries. Chapter 11. The Body Knows. One of the most potent observations in Part 2 is the body's involvement in holding emotional pain. Canon describes that emotion, particularly the unprocessed ones, resides in our tissue, our nervous system, our breath. Unfelt anger manifests as tight shoulders, clenched jaws, migraines, or IBS. In order to heal anger, we can't think differently. Rather, we need to feel differently in the body. She brings somatic tools into play to work through core emotions, grounding with breath, touching the heart, as you say, the authentic feeling, movement practice to unravel stuck tension. These practices restore safety in the body and, in the process, defuse old patterns of trauma from our current reality. Chapter 12. The Shame-Anger Loop. As we discover our core emotions, another deep insight emerges. The connection between shame and anger. Canon describes how most people are ashamed at being angry and reciprocally get angrier with themselves, a vicious cycle. She dissects this with empathy. Anger is a protector, shame is a silencer. Together, they keep us stuck. In order to shatter the cycle, we need to introduce self-compassion. And she teases this in step 6 later on. But in the meantime, she provides this affirmation. To commit to. There is nothing wrong with me for feeling angry. My feelings are valid. My emotions are wise. Part 3. The Voice of Truth. Turning anger into wisdom. Chapter 13. Step 4. Listen for the message. We've felt the anger. We've labeled the trigger. We've located the root emotion. Now comes the turning point. Step 4. Listen for the message. Marcia Canon reminds us that each emotional storm holds a secret message, a plea from your soul, but most of us are so wrapped up in the thunder of our reactions that we never hear the whisper underneath. This is where the real transformation starts. Anger is not random. It's intelligent. It speaks a language of unmet needs, crossed boundaries, and ignored values. She shows us how to slow down and interpret the message. For instance, I'm angry because I wasn't respected shows the need for dignity. I'm furious because I was excluded shows the desire for belonging. I snapped because I'm bursting at the seams shows the cry for rest and equilibrium. Canon gives us the tool of emotional inquiry, a guided exercise in reflection that allows you to question your anger. What are you trying to protect? What is being deprived of? What is being violated? Your anger is like a best friend with tough love. It may speak harshly, but it's trying to get your attention for something important. Chapter 14. From Insight to Boundaries. When you listen deeply, the message of anger will often take you to one inescapable truth. A boundary needs to be established, reinstated, or respected. This chapter explores boundary work, a strong act of self-respect. Canon believes that most people don't have an issue with anger. They have an issue with abandoned boundaries. We say yes when we wish to say no. We put up with abuse because we are afraid of being rejected. And the internal alarm, anger, increases in volume over time. Anger arises where we've been too silent for too long. She educates that boundaries are not walls. They are bridges of clarity. They say to others, "This is where I end and you begin." When you place a healthy boundary, you're not keeping others away, you're guarding your own peace. Canon provides language templates. "I'm not okay with being spoken to like that. This doesn't work for me anymore. I need time to think about this before agreeing." Every sentence becomes a message to the world and to you that you count. Chapter 15, Step 5. Learn from the anger. Now that we've received the message, it's time to grow up. Step 5 challenges us to learn from the anger, to collect the lessons it had to teach, and make deep emotional improvements. This is not about self-awareness. This is about integration. Canon encourages us to ask, what patterns keep firing up my anger? What do I now know about my values, my needs, and my story? How can I make other choices in the future? She presents the concept of anger as a teacher of boundaries, honesty, and bravery. If we listen, anger will not only defend us, it will lead us to emotionally grow up. She tells of clients who, having worked with their anger, made life-changing adjustments. One broke free from a poisonous relationship after years of silence. Another rescued her creative voice on a corporate job. Another fought generational silences in her family with kindness and precision. All because they no longer feared their anger. Their anger, they learned from it. Anger is not the enemy of peace. It is the invitation to a deeper one. Chapter 16. The Power of Choosing You. One of the highlights of this chapter is Canon's inspiring revelation. When you honor your anger, you honor yourself. This is the chapter in which listeners start to feel stronger, not smaller. You come to see that the aim of anger work is not to be calm, no matter what, but to become clear, congruent, and courageous. She discusses self-betrayal, all the ways that we've sold out in order to keep the peace, and how taking back our voice, our NOs, and our truth is the ultimate act of emotional healing. You're not being a more agreeable person, you're being a more complete one. Chapter 17. Emotional Integrity. In this, Canon does something revolutionary. She brings us a game-changing phrase, emotional integrity, the alignment between what you feel, what you know, and how you act. Anger, when respected and recognized, is a guide to your highest truth. It informs you what you value, what you need to let go of, what you need to defend. This chapter is a battle cry. No more squelching, no more detonating. Just being present authentically, responsibly, and powerfully. She reminds us that emotional integrity is not about being perfect, it's about being present. Chapter 18. Practice Makes Peace. To wrap up Part 3, Canon reminds us emotional mastery is not a place. It's a practice of each day. She provides a quick 5-minute daily practice. 1. Sit in silence. 2. Ask, what am I feeling today? 3. Find in your body. 4. Breath into it with kindness. 5. Ask, what does this feeling want me to know? This isn't a practice of managing emotions, it's a practice of meeting yourself daily. So, anger never has to yell again to be heard. Part 4. Coming home to yourself. The final steps toward freedom and peace. Chapter 19. Step 6. Love yourself through it. We've journeyed through the heat of anger, uncovered its messages, and translated them into wisdom and action. Now, in Step 6, Marcia Canon asks us to do something revolutionary and transformational, to love ourselves, even in the midst of the storm. Because genuine healing doesn't originate from intellect alone, it comes from compassion, particularly the compassion we show ourselves when we feel least worthy of it. The lesson: when we're angry, we tend to turn on ourselves, we feel guilty, we criticize ourselves for not being better, kinder, or more spiritual. But Canon maintains that anger isn't a failure, it's a feeling. You don't heal by punishing yourself, you heal by embracing yourself. She presents self-soothing rituals that assist us in rewiring the old shame-anger cycles. Gentle touch. Put a hand on your heart and repeat, I see you, I hear you, you matter. Inner child healing. Talk to the wounded part of you as you would talk to a dear child. Forgiveness meditation. Not others, but yourself for all times that you sold out your truth to maintain peace. This chapter is a balm. After all the digging around in emotions, it shows us how to hold ourselves gently. You are not your past reactions. You are the awareness that's learning a new way. Chapter 20. Emotional Self-Parenting. This chapter expands on Step 6 by presenting a strong idea. Become the parent you needed when you were young. Most of us learned early in life without models or tools to deal with anger in a healthy manner. We were punished, ignored, or humiliated for experiencing intense emotions, so we stuffed them, and they erupted as volcanoes within us. Canon invites us to reparent ourselves, to become the secure, powerful, wise inner parent who can say, I see why you're angry. Your feelings are. Okay, let's tend to what you need. It's not about wallowing in victimhood. This is about taking back the work of caring for ourselves, particularly when anger arrives. You don't need someone else to validate your experience. You can become your own source of peace. Chapter 21. Step 7. Live your truth. The last step is both the simplest and deepest. Let your anger teach you how to live honestly. Now that you've cracked your anger, respected your boundaries, learned from your emotional truth, and practiced compassion, it's time to let all of it direct your life. Canon refers to this as living in alignment. Living your truth involves saying no without guilt, saying yes with your whole heart, speaking your truth without blowing up or shutting down, selecting people and places that honor your voice, building a life where your values are no longer up for debate. This isn't about still being angry. It's about becoming someone who no longer requires anger to speak on their behalf, because now they can speak for themselves. You become a peaceful person not by avoiding conflict, but by becoming someone who no longer fears it. This is a rebirth. The you who once silenced themselves, overreacted, or felt powerless, that old version dissolves, and a new, whole, empowered version of self arises. Chapter 22. Your anger was always a gift. In this profoundly moving final chapter, Marcia Cannon leaves us with a message that redefines everything. You were never broken. Your anger was not a flaw. It was the fire that tried to wake you up. She likens anger to a divine messenger, a power that comes only when we are not honoring something inside ourselves. And when we've worked through deciphering it, we discover that our highest strength was secreted in our darkest feelings. She asks us to give thanks to anger, to bow before it, to know that it brought us back to our truth. It revealed what matters most. It took us, in the end, to ourselves. The book ends not with a plan, but with a blessing. May you never silence your voice again. May your anger always bring you home. Closing reflection of the series. The gift you didn't know you needed. As we finish this journey, the significance of the gift of anger is now plain as day. It was never about controlling anger. It was about coming to terms with it. It was never about closing it off. It was about allowing it to open you. In these 7 steps, you have not only regained your voice, you've regained your life. You have learned that anger is a message, not an issue. Emotions are to be felt, not feared. Your truth is not a weight, it's your strength. And you proceed now, not only with understanding, but with emotional integrity, self-respect, and inner peace. The 7 steps recap. 1. Feel the anger. Make space for it. 2. Label the trigger. See what triggered it. 3. Locate the root emotion. Discover what lies below it. 4. Listen for the message. Decode its meaning. 5. Learn from the anger. Allow it to direct your next step. 6. Love yourself through it. Heal with compassion. 7. Live your truth. Walk in alignment, boldly and peacefully. Find out more from the book. Thanks for listening to Book Buzz reviews and summaries.